it wasn't entirely a surprise as the princess arrived with the prince at the Royal Albert Hall. She had always made it clear this was a weekend she wanted to attend. The royals might have to follow protocol, be poised, sophisticated, and picture-perfect, but sometimes even they cannot hold it all together. This time, it was Princess Charlotte who surprised everyone on live TV. She broke down, leaving not just the audience but even the royal family completely stunned. So what happened? Why was Princess Charlotte seen crying in public? The day started like any other major royal event. Crowds filled the streets, waving their Union Jack flags and full of excitement to see the royal family. Cameras were already in place, ready to capture every second of the grand occasion. It was one of those days that were both somber and celebratory. There was a delicate mix of emotion and tradition in the air that only the British monarchy could pull off. Princess Charlotte was impeccably dressed as always, standing by her family. She wore a small horseshoe brooch gifted to her by her late great-grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II. At just 7 years old, Charlotte had already impressed everyone with her grace and maturity, but this day would turn out to be unlike any other. As the day progressed, something changed. The cameras, always alert, caught a subtle shift in Princess Charlotte's demeanor. Her usual calm expression gave way to something much deeper. Everyone noticed something raw and human. Before anyone could process what was happening, tears started streaming down her cheeks. In that moment, the poised young royal let her guard down, and the world saw her as a little girl overwhelmed by emotion. Let's pause for a second here. For a child born into a life of public scrutiny, every gesture, every glance, and every tear is magnified. This was not just a kid having a rough moment, it was a young princess showing vulnerability on live television during a major royal event, and the world was completely captivated. Now, what makes this moment stand out is not just that Charlotte cried, it is where and when it happened. This was an event that had to be carried out with three things in mind: tradition, formality, and dignity. The royal family has long been associated with stoicism, so showing emotion, especially sadness or vulnerability, is almost unheard of. Yet here was Princess Charlotte, in front of millions, unable to contain her feelings. The general feeling was that it was a heartwarming moment. For once, the public saw something beyond crowns, palaces, or royal duties. They saw a little girl feeling something so strongly that she could not hide it. Social media, of course, went wild. Within minutes, hashtags were trending, and opinions were pouring in from all corners of the globe. People of all ages and backgrounds shared their thoughts, their empathy, and their admiration for Charlotte. What struck a chord with so many was not just the tears themselves, it was the innocence behind them. Normally, the royals appear in front of the public with their carefully curated appearances, but this time, Charlotte's raw emotion won everyone's heart. It was a reminder that even those born into privilege and duty are, at their core, just human. And let's not forget the immense pressure Charlotte faces. From the moment she was born, she has been in the public eye. Cameras have documented her every move, and she's grown up knowing that the world is always watching. For most children, moments of frustration or sadness happen in private, surrounded by people who love them. For Charlotte, it happens under the gaze of millions. Imagine carrying that weight as a 7-year-old. The royal family, of course, has come a long way from the days of rigid emotional control. There has been a shift towards relatability and transparency in recent years, largely thanks to younger royals like William, Kate, and Harry. Charlotte's emotional moment fits into this new narrative, one where the royals are not afraid to let their humanity show. Still, it is not something you see every day, especially not in such a public setting. Charlotte's tears resonated with people because they were relatable. At that moment, she was not a princess, she was a child who had lost her great-grandmother, someone who played an important role in her life. Queen Elizabeth II was not just a queen. For Charlotte, she was family, and the bond between them was evident in countless little moments captured over the years. The Queen's affection for her great-grandchildren was well documented, and Charlotte, with her lively and spirited personality, held a special place in her heart. Now, let's talk about the event itself because understanding the context is key to grasping why this moment was so powerful. This royal gathering was a day to honor Queen Elizabeth II, a figure who loomed large in the lives of her family and the nation. For Charlotte, standing in the middle of this, surrounded by tributes and memories, must have been overwhelming. Even the most composed adult would feel the weight of such an occasion. For a young child, the emotions were likely too much to bear, and honestly, who could blame her? As the service progressed, the music, the speeches, and the sea of mournful faces created an environment that was bound to stir up deep emotions. For Charlotte, those emotions seemed to come flooding in all at once, and in that moment, her tears became the most genuine tribute of all. After the unforgettable moment where Princess Charlotte's emotions overflowed, it is impossible not to wonder what led to this reaction. Funeral, well, here's the thing about kids, they are far more intuitive than we sometimes give them credit for. Even at her age, Charlotte would have felt the atmosphere change. Adults may have coping mechanisms for heavy events, but children are still learning. They soak in the energy around them, and the tension and sadness of the occasion were palpable. Charlotte was surrounded by grieving family members and a sea of mourners. The event was a deeply emotional farewell to Queen Elizabeth II, a figure who was not just a monarch but also her great-grandmother. It is hard for any child to process that mix of personal loss and the pressure of being in the public eye. As the ceremony progressed, Charlotte initially held it together. She stood beside her brother and parents, her little face a picture of calm. But then something shifted, a slight furrow of her brow, a change in posture, small signs that something deeper was bubbling under the surface. And then it happened. The tears came. For a few heart-wrenching moments, she tried to hold them back, but it was no use. The emotions won, and tears began to fall. All anyone could see was a little girl feeling the raw weight of the moment. As the tears flowed, all eyes turned to Charlotte's parents, Prince William and Princess Kate, and their response was absolutely perfect. Princess Kate leaned in close, her face a picture of calm concern. She gently placed a reassuring hand on Charlotte's back and then whispered something. You could see the care and love in her expression. It was as if, for a moment, they were not standing in front of millions, they were just a mother and daughter. Prince William was not far behind. Though he had been part of the procession earlier, he quickly returned to comfort his little girl. Those present described him leaning down to Charlotte's level, speaking softly, and offering words of reassurance. While these moments were not broadcast live, reports suggest his demeanor was every bit as tender as Kate's. Together, they showed the world what modern parenting looks like, even under the royal microscope. This moment showed us how the royals of previous generations handled such situations. Emotional restraint and strict decorum were once the norm. Showing vulnerability, especially in public, was simply not an option. But William and Kate are rewriting the royal playbook. They have made it clear that their children's emotional well-being comes first, and their response to Charlotte's tears proved that. Kate and William's parenting philosophy has always emphasized balance. While they respect tradition, they also understand the importance of allowing their children to be children. In interviews, they have spoken openly about teaching their kids that it is okay to feel emotions and that seeking comfort is a sign of strength, not weakness. And isn't that what every parent wants for their kids? To know they are loved and supported, even when the world feels heavy. After the cameras stopped rolling, Charlotte's family surrounded her with comfort and care. Sources close to the royals shared that Kate continued to reassure Charlotte, holding her hand and gently touching her shoulder. These small gestures might seem simple, but they tell us about the kind of environment William and Kate are creating for their children, one filled with love, empathy, and understanding. The family's actions were perfect. If they wanted to teach her an important lesson, it was that it is okay to feel and to show those feelings, even when the world is watching. The public's response to Charlotte's tears and her family's reaction was overwhelmingly positive. Social media lit up with praise for William and Kate's parenting, with people from all walks of life sharing their admiration. Parents especially connected with the scene. Many commented on how relatable it was to see a child seek comfort and receive it without judgment. Charlotte's tears and the way her family handled them also started broader conversations about the modern monarchy. In a world where the relevance of royalty is often debated, this moment served as a reminder of the institution's evolving role. It showed that the royals are more than just figureheads, they are a family navigating life's challenges just like the rest of us. As Charlotte grows up, this moment will likely be remembered as a defining one. It is proof that being royal does not mean being untouchable. If anything, it shows the strength in vulnerability and the importance of having a strong support system. But not every royal supported Princess Charlotte's behavior that day. Was there anyone who got upset by this? Queen Camilla's odd behavior at Wellington Arch, where the Queen's coffin was being transferred to the state hearse, gave us a glimpse into the dynamics between Charlotte and her older brother, Prince George. Let's face it, even royals have sibling moments, and this one was caught live for the world to see. First off, George, dressed impeccably in a navy suit, was apparently up to some mischief. A lip reader caught him trying to pinch his sister while the family stood in solemn formation. Charlotte, being the strong little royal she is, was not having it. She reacted with a quick, "Oh," and a sharp glance at her brother. It was a classic sibling moment, but in a setting like this, with the entire world watching, it took on a whole new level of fascination. Let's be real for a second, what kid doesn't have a playful jab at their sibling? But when your grandmother is the Queen of England, the stakes are a bit higher. George's little poke seemed harmless enough, but Charlotte's quick response made it clear she was not about to let him get away with it. And honestly, good for her, she is clearly learning to hold her own in a family full of strong personalities. But then, things got a little bit awkward. Queen Consort Camilla, who was standing nearby, didn't seem too amused. Lip readers claimed she turned to Princess Catherine and said, "Take her now." Whether this was frustration or just an observation is anyone's guess, but Camilla's reaction made this all a bit more dramatic. Some viewers on social media even speculated about what exactly Camilla meant by her comment. Was she annoyed? Being directive? Who knows? But the internet, as always, had a field day. Then came the moment that showed just how much Charlotte takes her royal role seriously. At one point, as the coffin passed by, she turned to George and seemed to remind him that they needed to bow. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes. Even in the middle of a highly emotional day, Charlotte remembered her royal duties and was not shy about nudging her older brother to follow suit. And let's give some credit to George, he nodded and followed through. It was a small but telling moment about the dynamic between the siblings. Charlotte might be younger, but she clearly knows how to hold her ground and even offer a little guidance when needed. Now, let's shift focus to Princess Catherine. If we're being honest, parenting 3 young children is a challenge for anyone. Add the pressure of doing it under the constant gaze of the media, and it's a whole different ballgame. Yet, Catherine seems to handle it with grace and patience. Parenting experts were quick to weigh in on her approach during the funeral, praising her ability to balance correction with connection. For example, remember when Charlotte appeared nervous at the start of the event and Catherine leaned in to whisper something in her ear? This visibly cheered her up. That small act of reassurance set the tone for the rest of the day. What stood out most was how Catherine corrected Charlotte's behavior matter-of-factly and without anger. When it came to guiding her children, she focused on connection first, then correction. It's a subtle but powerful parenting technique that ensures the child feels secure and loved even as they are being guided. It's easy to forget, given their young ages, that George and Charlotte are already being groomed for their future roles as senior royals. Their appearance at the Queen's funeral was also a step in their ongoing preparation for the responsibilities they will carry as adults. Last year, George and Charlotte attended King Charles III's coronation, a historic event that was undoubtedly another huge milestone in their young lives. These experiences are designed to teach them about royal protocol, public appearances, and the balance between duty and personal identity. And let's not forget, they've already had their fair share of high-profile moments, from the Platinum Jubilee celebrations to the iconic Buckingham Palace balcony appearances. George and Charlotte are no strangers to being in the spotlight. Each of these events serves as another chapter in their royal education. As always, the internet couldn't resist diving into the drama. Social media was flooded with comments dissecting everything from Charlotte's quick outburst to Camilla's reaction. Was Camilla too stern? Did she overreact? Camilla's stern reaction, captured on camera, didn't sit well with everyone. Sure, she is the Queen Consort now, and protocol is her thing, but was it really necessary to point at Charlotte and reportedly tell Catherine to take her away? Many watching felt it was unnecessarily harsh, especially considering Charlotte was just 7 years old and was already dealing with the emotional weight of the day. It's not every day a child has to say goodbye to their great-grandmother, and to be fair, Charlotte handled the occasion with remarkable composure. Many online were not shy about calling out Camilla's seemingly cold demeanor, and they had a point. Camilla's response felt out of step with the warm, compassionate parenting style that Catherine and William consistently show their children. It's also worth noting the contrast with the late Queen Elizabeth II, who always seemed to have a special bond with Charlotte. The Queen was often seen smiling warmly at her great-granddaughter, showing patience and affection even in public settings. If there is one thing Camilla could take from Elizabeth's example, it is that a little kindness and understanding can go a long way, especially with children. After all, being queen means setting an example, and patience should be part of the job description. Perhaps next time, Camilla might try a softer approach. The world is watching, after all. Most people didn't pay much attention to her because they were focusing on the siblings. They loved seeing the human side of the royals. These little moments of sibling rivalry and parental guidance reminded viewers that, at their core, the royal family is just like any other family. They have their squabbles, their tender moments, and their challenges. And honestly, it's these glimpses of normality that make them so relatable. So why does any of this matter? Because moments like these show us the human side of the monarchy. It's easy to view the royal family as distant figures wrapped in tradition and protocol. But George and Charlotte's interactions, and the way their parents handle them, remind us that behind the titles and ceremonies, they are just a family navigating life together. For Catherine and William, these moments are opportunities to show the world what modern parenting looks like. Even in the most public of settings, they have made it clear that their children's well-being comes first, and they are not afraid to show vulnerability or imperfection along the way. For the public, it serves as a reminder that even the most polished and poised families have their quirks. It is these little imperfections that make the royals feel real, and that's what keeps people invested. So, what do you think about these little moments? Did Charlotte's tears change the way you see the royal family? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown of royal family moments, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more updates. Until then,